Everyone keeps asking if Dominik Mysterio still needs Liv Morgan. But after everything that's happened lately, I think we've been asking the wrong question. Because if you really look at the story, there's a real chance Dominik Mysterio never needed Liv Morgan at all. And honestly, the more you break this down, it starts to look like Liv might have needed Dom a lot more than people want to admit. Because once Liv got injured, Dominik didn't fall apart. He didn't stop moving. He didn't suddenly look lost. If anything, he started showing exactly how well he could operate without her. He was building alliances. He was still finding ways to survive. He was still winning. And that becomes a problem if Liv Morgan is supposed to be the one in control. Because for months, the assumption has been simple. Liv Morgan is running the Judgment Day, and Dominik Mysterio is benefiting from it. She talks like the leader. She presents herself like the strategist. But when you actually look at what's happened, the story starts to feel very different. Because once Liv was gone, Dominik kept operating. During that stretch, he was still able to form alliances, and not just with one version of El Grande Americano, but both versions. And those alliances actually mattered, because they helped him retain the Intercontinental Championship and even helped him win the AAA Mega Championship. And that matters because that's not the resume of someone who only functions because Liv Morgan is around. That's the resume of someone who knows how to maneuver no matter who's standing next to him. And I think that's what people still underrate about Dominik Mysterio, because Dom's biggest strength has never really been brute force. It hasn't even really been about the Judgment Day. His biggest strength is that he knows how to survive. He knows how to create openings. He knows how to get people around him. And when he has to, he knows how to win using the exact kind of methods his real dad, Eddie Guerrero, would have smiled at. Because even after Liv's injury, Dom was still finding ways to retain against names like AJ Styles, Penta, and Rusev. And he wasn't doing that because Liv Morgan was out there masterminding every move. He was doing it because Dominik Mysterio has quietly become really, really good at doing whatever it takes to keep his spot. Now, to be fair, Liv Morgan has helped Dominik Mysterio before. She encouraged him to go after the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, and she helped him reclaim that title at Survivor Series. So this isn't me saying Liv has had zero impact, because she clearly has. But helping someone and being the reason they succeed are two completely different things. And that's where the whole Liv argument starts falling apart, because the more you look at these moments now, the more they start to feel like a little self-serving, especially after Liv's whole claim that she was supposedly plotting against Finn Bálor all along. Because if that's true, then helping Dom in those moments doesn't necessarily mean she was building him up for his sake. It might have just been about strengthening her position inside the Judgment Day. And that's the real problem, because Liv did help Dom win in those moments. She hasn't really been there for him when he needed it most. When Dominik lost the Intercontinental Championship to Penta, Liv didn't stop it. When he lost his rematch to Penta, Liv didn't save it. And that's the difference, because helping someone when it benefits your own long-term agenda is not the same as showing up for them when everything is actually falling apart. And honestly, that's where this starts feeling like less support and more like convenience. But that's not even the part that makes this worse, because if we're being honest, Dominik has spent a lot of this relationship helping Liv, sometimes more than helping himself. He betrayed Rhea to help Liv win at SummerSlam. He took hit after hit from Rhea just to protect Liv. When Liv lost the title back to Rhea, Dominik was actually out there trying to help, which is a lot more than you can say for what Liv has done for Dom lately. He also helped Liv and Raquel Rodriguez build momentum toward their later Women's Tag Team Championship win. When he returned from injury, he hyped Liv's Royal Rumble win. He gave Liv the Valentine's date. He literally played translator for Stephanie Bakir to Liv. He's gotten hit by Stephanie multiple times, defending Liv. And after all that, when Dominik had his own title defense, when he had his own championship slipping away, when Liv claimed she already knew what Finn Bálor was up to, she still wasn't there. And that's where this stops feeling balanced. Because at some point, you have to stop asking whether Dominik Mysterio needs Liv Morgan, and start asking whether Liv has become more trouble than she's worth. And once you realize that, the whole relationship starts looking backwards. Because maybe Liv Morgan wasn't elevating Dominik Mysterio. Maybe Dominik Mysterio was giving Liv Morgan a position to stand in. Because if Dominik keeps sacrificing for Liv, and Liv keeps disappearing when it's his turn to need her, then this doesn't really look like a partnership anymore. And that's the twist, because maybe the story here isn't that Dominik Mysterio is slowly growing away from Liv Morgan. Maybe the truth is he was never really dependent on her to begin with. Maybe Liv helped shape the image, maybe she helped reinforce the perception, but the actual engine, the actual survivor, the actual one who keeps finding ways to stay in the middle of everything, that's been Dominik Mysterio. Dominik Mysterio isn't surviving because of Liv Morgan. He's surviving in spite of her not being necessary. And if Dominik Mysterio really has been operating like this the entire time, then this isn't just a realization. This is a setup. Because eventually, Liv Morgan is going to try and assert control again. But what happens when Dom realizes he doesn't just function without Liv, he might actually be worse off with her? What happens when he starts seeing Liv not as support, but as a liability? And what happens if he starts taking all of this personally, especially after Liv herself made it sound like Dom was always a part of her path back to Rhea? Because if Dominik starts believing that, he may not just stop depending on Liv. He may start looking somewhere else entirely. And that's where this stops being a power dynamic and starts being a conflict. So when you go back to the beginning of this, and you look at everything Dominik has done before Liv, during Liv, and even without Liv, maybe the answer has always been there the entire time. Did Dominik Mysterio ever really need Liv Morgan? Or did we just assume that he did?